I built a working nuclear reactor in Minecraft. It includes lava and electricity transportation trains and consumes about 37.5 buckets of lava every 5 minutes that it runs. That's over 100 buckets every Minecraft day, or about 1 bucket every 8 seconds. Without the interdimensional fuel trains, this reactor simply wouldn't be able to exist and would drink the overworld dry of natural lava if you tried to use that as the fuel. The entire thing creates about 1.348 million stress units that are then converted to electricity with around 40 alternators on each side, all spinning at the maximum speed of 256 RPMs. The energy is then stored in accumulators, which are kind of like giant batteries. There is over 5,000 MFE worth of electricity storage just at this facility. For reference, one full-sized battery holds about 90 MFE. At over 100,000 blocks, it takes up around 70 to 80 chunks, and we're also originally a mountain that I had to clear out using one of my massive drills beforehand. 2 battery carts on the electricity train hold a combined 576 MFE, which would be the equivalent of 800 kilowatt hours. It takes the reactor 864 lava buckets in about 50 real-life minutes to convert and accumulate that power. This would be the IRL equivalent of enough to power a real-life house for 30 days, a 1-ton air conditioner for 28 days, or a vending machine for 533 days, or for 266 days if you had 2. So I guess I should start by explaining what I need a nuclear reactor for in Minecraft in the first place. So you see, I have been developing a currently small city, and as a part of that, I wanted to create a military base and or just an airport for planes when we make them in the future. But I realized I'm going to need a lot of mechanical power for not only that, but a lot of other stuff like machines. The typical way you would go about getting mechanical power wherever you wanted it was to make steam engines. This is easier said than done though, and it's usually not worth the small amount of power that you are trying to get out of it. Options like wind or water turbines are also quite the hassle and provide even less total power than the steam engines. Then I can use some of the new mods that we added in to transport the energy via electricity wiring or train, and then convert that energy back into mechanical energy wherever it's needed. I originally was going to try and make or find a typical power plant build that I could convert and use in my own world. For certain builds, if I think it will take me a while, I'll try and find some online made by previous players. This one included a few more buildings than what I needed, and since they were just empty decorations, I decided to cut them out when building my own version of it. I decided to keep the main big cube buildings and the big stacks. I then spent a few days to a week in real life coming up with the design for how everything will work. The stacks are split up for 2 to generate the mechanical power with steam engines, and the other 2 to convert that mechanical power into electricity that then gets stored inside the red cube until it's ready to be used. Each steam engine stack has 8 nearly full-size steam engines, all running off of one big water block in the center of each stack that pulls out water from the ocean nearby. This means there are around 64 blaze burners, all actively draining the lava supply. This water is pumped from multiple pipes to each big engine using our smaller starter engine's mechanical power. That means it is notably a separate power source from the actual engines in the stacks, and they do not run themselves. This power is then split and run into the second steam engine stack as well to run the engines. The other stacks also have 12 backup accumulators inside each stack with the ability to reduce the amount of alternators spinning if the engines are still running but not at maximum capacity, since the engines can still run without the lava being pumped into them, and you can basically create electricity still, just not as much as if it was being fueled or heated. The next step was to build a large connecting bridge. I just wanted an easier way to get from each building to the other, so I thought it would be clever to build a larger walkway above it and either connect them or kind of hide the bottom one using the top one. I then added a simple simple contact system for the trains to transfer their contents. This was later improved and doubled for higher quantity and faster loading. I finished up with all the features on the build, including some display boards to monitor fuel levels and clutches to allow us to turn off certain parts of the reactor from our control room. I then realized something very quickly when planning this all out, and that was that I haven't cleared out this giant mountain yet. Now, most Minecraft players would try their best to avoid having to mine away an entire mountain, even if they were using a beacon, but modded Minecraft makes this way easier. Clearing this mountain has like 28 different ways you could go about doing it. My favorite would be to research and develop some small arms nuclear weapons and just drop one of those on it using some airplanes that I've been developing for my future videos, but the most logical would be to use a massive minecart drill. Now, earlier I said I wasn't prepared simply because my drill might be big, but this mountain is massively gargantuan. To get started on clearing out this mountain, I had to lay down tons of normal minecart rails for the contraption to run along. This took a few hours in real life, and I specified minecart tracks since that's how I've been making my drills and not using a larger train. I reused some drill tips from the other drills to try and make it as tall as I possibly could, but with how wide it is and even with all of the extras, it only came out to about 15 to 20 blocks tall. Since the mountain is about 30 to 40 blocks tall in some areas, this meant that I would have to run 2 full layers and 1 slim bottom layer to get all of the blocks. The bottom layer would be using the cart I usually use to flatten out more flat areas. I started by placing the cart 15 blocks from the topmost blocks of the mountain. After a few hours in real life, it was finally done drilling everything. I then basically repeated the entire process again, just another 15 blocks down. I know you guys aren't about to watch 5 minutes of the entire thing, so I decided to create a Patreon page where you can find the rest of this time lapse and more full time lapses from future projects. After a nice section of the mountain was flattened down, I dumped out the minecart drill into some giant vaults. These are similar to chests but hold way more items and allow me to link them to a display board and show the contents inside each one. Once that was finished, I took a short break and then came back to start collecting the items that we needed. Here's all the materials we will need, and this is probably going to take quite a while. The most expensive and time-consuming part of collecting everything was probably the electrum. We basically need this material for everything electricity related, like the tons of accumulators that the build uses. Not only is it quite the expensive recipe for us currently, but my quarry was made on top of old chunks before a lot of the newer mods were added, so even if I wanted to drill for the silver, I wouldn't be able to. I will have to move or remake the entire quarry in a new updated location in the future so we can more effectively get the new ores and minerals that we recently added. Once I had all the items collected, this took around a day in real life, I was then finally ready to build the nuclear reactor in my survival world using a schematic and a schematic cannon. After about 8 hours in real life and literally going to sleep and waking up to this thing still printing out the reactor, it was done. I checked that everything was connected with the starter engine and the main power room. I then checked all of the accumulators and fluid tanks in all of the stacks, since when you print them out with the schematic cannon, they become separated even though they're pretty much right next to each other. There's no reason they shouldn't be connected, it's kind of just a bug that happens. You can fix this by breaking and replacing the top layer or 1 block of each of the tanks or accumulators, and we have at least 40. So this is going to take a little bit longer than I anticipated. I had to wire up all the accumulators or battery cells together. This is because the schematic cannon doesn't usually print the smaller stuff like the wires and the connectors that you then have to typically add yourself. Everything else, like the over 300 mechanical shafts that are always rotating and probably causing a lot of lag, were all aligned correctly. So now we are on to the next step before we get it up and running. So the one one thing that we are going to need to start this reactor up is some lava. Now technically I only needed one bucket to get it going if I just powered the starter engine with that, but then it will run out, so we will be needing a lot more than just one bucket. That is why we will be making an interdimensional train system that transports lava to the reactor with a multi-tank train. This is using lava from our previously existing lava pumps that we made in the first episode. These pumps extend past a cliff and hang over an ocean of lava with a pump that extends all the way down and into the lava to collect it. Since it is so big that it is literally an ocean of lava, the create mod considers it an infinite source, so we will pretty much never run out as long as we are pumping from here. Also, since we thankfully already drilled this area out in the previous third episode, which is currently unlisted and will probably get re-uploaded at some point, we can go ahead and make a pretty simple train station in here for now. I'm not focused on making this look good just yet, as there's a lot more we need to do first. I started by adding a nice large wall of windows on both far sides of the building. This will allow me to see ghasts outside before I go out, as they have been quite the deterrent for me being in the nether overall. Once that was done, I could start remodeling our pump and lava storage system. And what I thought would be the easiest part of adding the train tracks probably ended up taking the most amount of time. The linked portal location for the reactor was in a less than ideal spot in the nether. I dug a train-sized tunnel up into the roof where there were natural netherrack chunks. I've also started making a note to indent the tracks a few blocks down into the ground. This way the platform is flush with where you get on the train, and it just makes it overall a lot easier. Now this place looks nice and all, but I can't transport this lava without a liquid carrying train, and the train I do have is made of wood and very basic, so thanks to some additional mods I've added recently, there are now stairs, slabs, and other blocks that you can turn into basically any other block. This is something that players have overall wanted forever, and I think it makes a good addition and makes things look a lot better. With these blocks I was able to design a nice medium-sized train that looked a lot better than my last train, so I think I have to clarify that I did build this myself and that it only looks good because I took a little bit too long to make it and overthought pretty much every detail. Once I was done making it, I wanted to test drive it and do one test fill of lava to make sure that everything worked and to start up the reactor. This is also where I'm going to explain pretty much how it all works. So I started by giving what I call the main or starter engine a bucket of lava. This gives us a few thousand more stress units as well, which are all needed to power the multiple pumps leading from this building all the way down to the two steam engine reactors, which are towers number 3 and 4. Inside those two reactors is another about 10 pumps each and more machinery that needs power to run. The lava is also pumped into the starter engine so that you don't have to have a deployer or anything give it lava continuously. There is pretty much a master valve or switch that can be turned up top near the tanks to cut off all of the lava. Now heading back to the outside, both towers 3 and 4 have their own mechanical shafts coming out and extending over to 1 and 2. Each is specifically to only one on each side, so that means that Tower 3 powers Tower 2 and Tower 4 powers Tower 1. Tower 3 can also help power Tower 1 with combined shafts at one end, but this should never really be needed. And yeah, that's basically how it works. And now that we have it all started up, I went around to double check everything and make sure that it was all running smoothly and that we weren't going to have any hiccups along the way. Once I verified this, the last thing to do was make the electricity train and connect and convert our rail system. And yeah, that is about all for this video though. I hope you guys did enjoy it. Stay tuned for the next part where we continue developing our airport and build our first planes with the help of our electricity generation system. This is also just scratching the surface of how far we can push the theoretical limits of what the game can even handle. I have plenty more mind-blowing ideas coming up in the future that I've been working on for the past year-ish. Let me know down below what you thought of the video, and yeah, I will see you all in the next video.
I'm living that life and I don't care about it. Acting real hard like you killing, I doubt it. You said he hating on me when I'm behind the scenes, and you really think I'ma allow it? You're just a maggot, I'll stop till you're dead. Far from a savage, it's all in your head. I'm with the bad bitch right now in LA. We touched down, so I'll let my gang handle instead. Sitting, you plot like I'm destined to fail. All of my music like the holy grail. I know it's pissing you off, so I'm never gonna stop.
Legalize nuclear bombs.